What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the attic. Today, we'll be taking a deep dive into UFC 321, identifying who the machine learning models expect to win, and looking at the bets that I placed on these fighters. As always, we'll start with a quick review of last week's results. There were 2 cards over the weekend. They're out of order on my graph, but that doesn't change anything. We'll start off with UFC Vancouver, where I took a 5.46 unit hit. To be completely honest, this one doesn't feel so bad in the end. The models only predicted 7 out of 12 fights correctly, starting off the prelims with 4 losses in the first 6 fights. After that, we went on a nice run, and if RDR had gotten the win in the main event, we actually would have been profitable for this card. The other event over the weekend was PFL Africa 3. If you follow along on the Patreon, then you would already know I screwed up these wagers and bet the wrong side of the Octave versus Esperanca fight the first time. I did what I could to reconcile this, but it did cost me a bit in the end. The true results are that the models went 1-1 on predictions, correctly predicting Babley for a profit of 1.5 units and losing on the Octave prediction for what should have been a loss of 1 unit. Anybody who tailed the Patreon picks would have made a half unit profit, but my actual profit was only 0.33 units because of my mistake. As always, I closed out the weekend by accepting the weekly bonus, this one amounting to 0.43 units. All in all this weekend, I took a loss of 4.7 units, bringing my bankroll down to 435.28. As always, 1 unit is exactly 1% of my bankroll, so the unit size this week will be $4.35, and 1.5 units will be $6.53. With all of the accounting out of the way, let's jump into predictions for UFC 321. For this card, we're going to start off in the women's strawweight division with Jacqueline Amarim fighting Mizuki Inoue. These two are quite close in age with only 10 months difference. They're the same height at 5'3", but Amarim will still have a 4-inch reach advantage. The most surprising thing I see here is that Inoue hasn't fought in 763 days, and I'm not able to find any reason for that. Before that, she had another long layoff that lasted more than 3 years, this one due to an ACL injury. Jacqueline has been much more active, averaging 2 fights a year for her entire career. She also has a much more impressive record at 10-1. All of her wins have come by stoppage, and 8 out of the 10 have come in the first round. The models correctly predicted Amarim to win her last time out when she was a big favorite, and they all expect her to get it done again. For the new viewers, I'll provide a quick rundown of the current betting strategy. The number of units bet is based on the odds at the book and the win probabilities that the models output. Any fighter that is favored to win by 2 models will be the fighter that I'm betting. I will automatically be placing a 1-unit wager if the American odds are plus money, or enough to profit 1 unit if the odds are in the negatives. If the third model agrees with the other 2, then 1 unit will be scaled up to 1.5. Using this fight as an example, you can see that all 3 models agree that Jacqueline Amarim is more likely to win, and her odds at the book are minus 400, so I've placed a 6-unit wager on her to return 1.5 units if she does win. Next up at men's flyweight will be Mitch Raposo versus Azat Maksum. Mitch is the younger fighter here by a few years, but they're both within the range that would be considered their prime. Where we do see a bit of difference is the 2 inches in reach and 5.5 inches in height that Azat has over Mitch. Maksum is the slightly more experienced fighter of the 2, but they are both coming off back-to-back decision losses in the UFC. In the promotion, Azat is 1-2, while Raposo is 0-2, so they both need a statement win here if they want to stick around. Before they entered the UFC, they both had quite good records, which I believe led the models to predict wins for them earlier this year. I've lost both bets on these two so far, but this time around, my money is on the favorite. Azat Maksum is a minus 350 favorite at the book, and 2 of 3 models predict him to win. The wager should have been 3.5 units, but I mistyped the total and ended up placing a 3.64 unit wager on him to profit 1.04 units with a win. Moving all the way up to heavyweight for our next fight between Hamdi Abdelwahab and Chris Barnett. There is a massive discrepancy in experience between these two. Chris has been fighting since 2009 and has amassed 32 professional fights, while Hamdi only has 6 fights dating back less than 6 years. It's hard to make any assumptions based on finishing percentage or win rate because Hamdi has such little experience. But him and Chris both generally get early KOs. Barnett hasn't had a fight this year, so I don't have any bet history for him, but Abdelwahab secured a win for me in January as a very small underdog. Despite having very few fights, all 3 models are pretty strong on Hamdi Abdelwahab here, and so are the bettors. I picked him up as a minus 350 favorite for 5.25 units. This card only has a single featherweight matchup and will be a battle between Jose Delgado and Nathaniel Wood. Jose has an impressive 10-1 record, going unbeaten over his last 7 fights. He has finished all 10 of his wins, 7 of them in the first round, including 2 TKOs in the UFC. He's the younger fighter by more than 4.5 years and will also carry a notable edge in both height and reach. Wood is the more experienced of the two, with more than twice as many pro fights. I've also noticed that Nathaniel has been to a decision in his last 8 fights and was able to win 6 of those. Jose's one loss was by decision, so if Wood can stay in the fight, he may find himself in a good position to win. Between these two fighters, the wager history comes out about even, with only a 9-cent deficit after 3 bouts. All 3 models lean towards Jose Delgado to win this fight, so I picked him up as a minus 145 favorite for 2.18 units. Up next, we have a heavyweight bout between Louis Sutherland and Walter Walker. Both of these guys are in this fight after being rebooked when their opponents pulled out at the last minute. Louis' fight was booked about a month ago, while Walter is taking a new opponent on just 2 weeks. Walker's most recent weigh-ins have been around 245 pounds, so I don't think he will be too affected. Louis seems to push the heavyweight limit a little bit more, but recently he has taken a fight every 2 months, so I don't expect him to have any trouble making the weight. This will be Sutherland's UFC debut, but he does have 3 fights between PFL and Bellator. Walter has been very active this year, already securing 2 first-round heel hooks to cash both of my wagers. In both of the canceled fights, the models favored these fighters to win, but they can't pick them both now. This time around, they are leaning very heavily towards Walter Walker, who is a moderate minus 310 favorite at the books. It's a little more expensive than last time, but I'm still happy to be betting Walker, this time for 4.65 units. Matthias Camilo and Abdul Karim El Sawadi are going to face off in our next prelim fight at lightweight. These two are both looking to bounce back after losing their first fight in the UFC. Matthias lost by second-round submission back in May, while Al Sawadi was KO'd in March of 2024. Following this loss, Abdul Karim was injured while training for his next fight, which put him out for more than 6 months. Unfortunately, he had 2 opponents pull out of that February event and has since been out for an additional 9 months. As you can see from the losses on their records, they each seem to have an Achilles heel. Camilo suffering all 3 losses by submission, and Al Sawadi all 4 by KO/TKO. In the past, Matthias has burned me as a moderate minus 255 favorite, but the models like him again in this fight. The odds are much closer this time around, with Matthias Camilo coming in as an even plus 100 underdog. All three models give him a better chance of winning, so I picked him up for 1.5 units. That fight will be followed by another lightweight fight. This time, a matchup between Ludovic Klein and Mateusz Rebecki. Right off the bat, I see a very large discrepancy in the fighter comparison. Despite both being 5'7", Klein will have a 6.5-inch reach advantage. Reach doesn't amount to much more than 4% for any of these models, but 6 inches is a big difference for a lightweight fight. Both of these guys have records spanning more than 20 fights and have shown the ability to secure a win from anywhere. But they do have a ton of finishes, with many of them coming in the first round. In the past, I have bet on Ludovic as an underdog and against Mateusz as a favorite. Despite the bet on Klein losing the last time around, all three models have faith in him again. I picked up Ludovic Klein as a small minus 135 favorite for 2.03 units. The only middleweight bout on this card will see Ikram Aliskerov take on Jun Young Park. Park is the more experienced fighter of the two, but Ikram's record is much better. Ikram only has 2 losses on his record, one to a former champ in Robert Whittaker and the other to the current champ Hamzat. Park should not be easily overlooked though. He is the more experienced fighter here with a 9-3 record in the UFC compared to Aliskerov's record of 3-1. June has also been a very difficult opponent to finish, with his only TKO loss coming back in 2021. Also, he's got a record of 6-1 since then. Between these two fighters, I've taken a small loss, winning a bet on Ikram and losing a bet against Park. The models are not extremely confident in this prediction, but they do all favor Ikram Aliskerov as a minus 240 favorite. So I've placed a 3.6 unit wager on him to win. We'll be closing out the prelims with a bout between Quillan Salkild and Nasrat Haqparast at lightweight. Quillan will be more than 4 years younger, 2 inches taller, and have a 3-inch reach advantage. He's also riding a 9-fight win streak that dates back to his professional debut. His 2 most recent wins came in the UFC, but Nasrat will likely be his toughest opponent to date. Haqparast is on a 5-fight win streak of his own and has much more high-level experience with 14 bouts in the UFC. So far, the models have not done an excellent job when predicting fights for these two. We've only gone 1-1 for Salkild and 0-1 for Nasrat. Around here, I don't let past failures affect future decisions, so let's see what the models think about this one. All three are very much in favor of Quillan Salkild, with not a single model below 60%. The book odds are very close to a pick'em, but Salkild is still a very small underdog at minus 105, so I picked him up for 1.58 units. Moving on to the main card, where we will kick things off in the light heavyweight division with a fight between Alexander Rakic and Azamat Murzakanov. I expect Rakic to look like an absolute giant in there against Murzakanov. He will be 6 inches taller and carry a 6.5-inch reach advantage. Although, I'm much more interested to see how he performs after 3 straight losses followed by a year away. Azamat will be no easy opponent to return against either. He is 15-0 as a professional, with 11 of those wins by KO/TKO, 8 coming in the first round. Because of the long layoff, I have no wager history for Rakic, and for some reason, the models predicted a loss for the undefeated Murzakanov in his last fight. I was very surprised to see that the book odds were so close for this fight, but at least this time my money is on Azamat Murzakanov. Minus 120 seems extremely cheap to me, so I've gladly laid 1.8 units on Murzakanov to win. Next up, we have another heavyweight bout, this time between Jailton Almeida and Alexander Volkov. As expected, at 6'7", Volkov is significantly taller than Almeida, but their reach is still nearly identical, with Almeida's wingspan only shorter by 1 inch. Both of them have had quite a long layoff, especially for fighters so close to the top of the division. But this entire division has basically been on a hiatus for the past 2 years. This bout was scheduled once before in June of 2024, but Volkov was moved to another fight. Jailton has quite an extensive record with 25 fights dating back to 2012, but that still pales in comparison to Volkov's 49 professional bouts. These prediction models really threw me off this time, 2 of the 3 favoring Volkov to win. I thought this could be an experience issue, but there's an inverse relationship between experience and Volkov as the predicted winner. If you see anything here that might explain these results, let me know in the comments below. It's not my favorite bet of the night, but I have placed a 1-unit wager on Alexander Volkov as a plus 195 underdog. In the feature bout, we've got Umar Nurmagomedov versus Mario Bautista in our only bantamweight matchup of the night. Umar was undefeated at 18-0 until January, when he lost a unanimous decision to Merab in a bid for the bantamweight title. Mario has 2 losses on his record, both coming in the UFC, but he is currently on an 8-fight winning streak and looking to get a title shot of his own. These two are nearly identical in height and reach, but Mario will be the older fighter by 2.5 years. Back in June, I bet against Mario when he fought Patchy Mix. He ended up winning a very dominant decision. This time around, the models are again predicting a Bautista loss, so hopefully I have better luck. At the books, Umar Nurmagomedov is a large minus 525 favorite, and all 3 models also see him as a likely winner, so I've placed a 7.88 unit wager on him to win. In the co-main event, we have Mackenzie Dern fighting Virna Jandiroba for the vacant strawweight title. Is this division really so dead that our best option for a title shot is Dern on a 2-fight winning streak, having lost 2 of her last 5 fights? Virna is at least on a 5-fight run, but she has already lost to Mackenzie when they fought in December of 2020. Virna is almost 5 years older, but height and reach are nearly identical. Both of these women have a fair amount of stoppage wins, but in recent years, we have seen almost all decisions from the 2 of them. As the data on WMMA grows, I've noticed that age is beginning to take a hold at strawweight. All of them are well into the teens at least, and surprisingly, the one model which gives age over 20% favors the older fighter in Virna. That is the only model that favors her, though, with the other 2 barely leaning towards Mackenzie Dern. She's a small minus 175 favorite at the book, and she did win the first bout, so I'm quite comfortable laying a 1.75 unit wager on Mackenzie Dern. The main event on this card is a heavyweight title fight between the current champ Tom Aspinall and the former interim champ Cyril Gane. Tom is almost exactly 3 years younger, with just a single day separating their birthdays. As I mentioned earlier, the heavyweight division has been extremely stale lately, and that is very obvious when 2 of the top fighters haven't fought in more than 300 days. Cyril's win record is pretty balanced, but his most recent submission was 6 years ago, nearly to the day. Aspinall still has a 100% finish rate for his wins, 14 of the 15 coming in the very first round. Tom's only loss in the UFC was due to a knee injury, and he has since avenged that loss with a first-round finish. Both of Cyril's losses have come in the UFC, and they are arguably a sign that he caves under pressure. Both times were in a bid for the heavyweight title, and both times he looked like a shell of himself. Hopefully, the third time's the charm for Gane, though, because all 3 models favor him to win. This is the second heavyweight fight on this card that I outright do not agree with, but I don't make decisions around here. The models like Cyril Gane, and he is a plus 300 underdog at the books, so I have bet him for 1.5 units. That's every fight on this card, so let's have a look at the totals. UFC 321 is currently a 14-fight card, and the models were able to make predictions on every single fight. On 10 of the 14 fights, they predict the favorite to win, and all three models agree on 8 of those 10. The other 4 fights were bet on the underdogs, with 3 of those being confident. Realistically, though, 2 of those 3 are as close to a pick'em as you can get. The other confident dog is Cyril Gahn at plus 300, and I think his only real chance is a flash knockout. In total, I risked 44.35 units on this card for a potential profit of 23.5 units. That's all I've got for you on this card, but we do have one championship and LFA coming up this weekend, so follow the Patreon to see those wagers when the lines drop. Also, let me know what you think about the new video layout and leave any suggestions in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching and good luck on all of your bets this weekend.